guys, it's Joe and Ribs here coming at you with a daily Slay the Spire chat. Today I'm going to be talking about corruption. Many people were very generous and donated money for me to eat food and requested that I talk about corruption in a video. So I'm going to do my best job of it, and I'm actually going to talk about something completely different for the run-up because, well, you'll understand why soon. So I want to talk about, first, conceptually, what a game tree is. When you play Slay the Spire and you get into your first floor fight, you're in a game tree, and your actions take you along different branches of the tree. And eventually, as you navigate through this tree, through lots of different branches, you'll get to an end point of the tree, which is either you winning or losing the run. And this game tree is gargantuan. Every decision that you make sends you along a different branch. And obviously, every run that you do has one end point. You either win or you lose. And it's this massive, massive thing. And game trees can be very useful to visualize something like tic-tac-toe or something like that. I mean, you can even use them to visualize chess or something that complex. But I find that they're too big in my head to sort of manage. And so how I conceptualize the sort of game space of Slay the Spire is I imagine this flat plane. Let's, man, I have really no paper here at all that doesn't have information I shouldn't show you on it. Let's say this is the game space of Slay the Spire. It's this flat plane, and it has hills all over it. So there's a hill here, 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 hills and valleys. And the idea in my mind in any Slay the Spire run is there are lots of places you can go, and what you want to do is you want to aim for the top of one of the hills. The higher up you get, the higher your chance of winning is. If you're at the peak of a hill, then you're basically winning guaranteed. If you're halfway up a hill, you might win. You've got a decent chance. And the different hills sort of represent different strategies and different synergies between cards that you might happen upon. And it's not as simple as just like an archetype, like corruption goes in an exhaust archetype. I hate the word archetype. I think it simplifies the game way too much and isn't very useful for thinking about things at all. But one hill might involve fighting all of the Act 1 elites to get as many relics as possible, whereas another hill might involve skipping as many Act 1 elites as possible to upgrade more cards. And one of these hills may involve fighting all the elites and trying to force a poison deck with Silent to, you know, make it Noxious Fumes and Bouncing Flask and Catalyst and go for that. And another hill might involve not doing that. So the point is that as I'm playing this game, I think a lot of people look for like what the best strategy is. And they're like, the best strategy is poison deck with Silent. And you just make poison, you make block and whatever. Or they're saying the best strategy with Ironclad is strength. You build up a ton of strength and then kill stuff. Or it's barricade plus block. You just get tons of block and then body slam. And a lot of people want that what is the best approach answer. But every game of Slay the Spire is on a different plane. What you're meant to do is different because of the randomness of the game. In some of them, you're going to get all the great poison cards, and that hill, which has poison cards be great, is going to be taller than the other ones, and you want to recognize that and get to it. In one game, you're not going to get any poison cards. You're going to get like a shuriken, and you're going to have to recognize, hey, I want to build synergies with shurikens and go for that. In some games, you're going to have a deck that is strong against early elites, and you want to kill the elites. And in other games, you're going to have a deck that cannot really handle early elites, but has enough strength to kill act bosses as long as it gets there on full health. A deck like Bouncing Flask plus Catalyst, that sort of damage package, can often just deal enough damage to end bosses to kill them if it goes in with full health, but isn't actually very good at hallway fights. And so it really doesn't want to fight a ton of elites, maybe. It wants to prioritize getting to campfires and etc. Whereas another deck that's full of, say, glass knives and backstabs is really good at fighting elites, but may fall off and not manage to kill an act boss, and so it's really important to fight the elites. And when I'm playing Slay the Spire, I'm trying to explore this plane. I'm trying to work out everything I can about all the hills on it. And in one game, I'm trying to work out which hills are the tallest and which one I should go to. And when I'm halfway trekked up one hill, I have to decide, geez, do I deviate and go for a different one because I've been offered this particular card or relic or something like that, or my health is very low. So how do I adjust? Where do I go in this plane? That's what I'm thinking. I don't care at all about thinking abstractly about the game, like this is always the strongest hill, or this is a great general strategy for climbing a hill that's usually good. I care about the individual game I'm playing. I want to understand which hills are good in this one. That's the beauty of the game to me. I love it. I just absolutely love it. And the reason that I talked about all of that in a video about corruption is I've never lost with corruption. I don't feel like I've explored that hill enough. I take it a little bit under half the time on Ascension 15, and I have a 100% win rate when taking it, which means I feel really inadequate about like analyzing this card. It's possible to learn about games by winning, but you learn very rapidly and very important lessons by losing. And corruption, I haven't really worked out how you lose with it yet. So anyway, I'll give you guys my like wrap up of what the corruption hill, whatever that is, looks like and what sort of cards it interacts with and relics, and try to do my best. But I just wanted to share that little insight into what's going on in my head because I thought it might be interesting. So I'm gonna start at the top, which is like Dead Branch corruption. It's very, very clear to anybody who has ever seen Dead Branch work with corruption that this is a very, very strong interaction. Dead Branch, whenever you exhaust a card, add a random card to your hand, and corruption, of course, makes it so that your skills cost 0, and whenever you play one, you exhaust. So you go from being a deck which plays the game in a way that resembles fairness and sensibility to being a deck that literally just... There's this like trope of like throwing your deck at the enemy when you're like just doing something stupid. But this is like you're throwing your deck at the enemy and then there are just random strangers giving you more deck. And then you throw that at the enemy too. It's like the next level of absurdity. What happens when you have corruption in Dead Branch? Every time you play a skill, it costs 0, and it puts another card in your hand. And if that one's a skill, it costs 0 too. And when you play it, it puts another card in your hand. So as long as you have like 10 skills in your deck, if you have corruption Dead Branch, you win the run. Like it's really hard not to. It's theoretically possible, but I've never seen it happen. You could just, you know, every single random card that you got could be Clash, and, well, you'd still win. Every single random card you got could be Flex, and no, that's a skill, so you'd still win. Every single random card you got could be Anger, and then you lose somehow, maybe. It's theoretically possible. The rest of your deck would probably still be strong enough to win, but whatever, in theory. So that's really strong, and then we move down to, like, the next level. Like, obviously, yeah, you take Corruption if you have Dead Branch. It might be that Corruption Dead Branch is such a strong combo that you take Corruption on, like, the first floor, just in case you get Dead Branch. I don't think so, but maybe. I haven't climbed this hill enough to know for sure. The next level is stuff like Feel No Pain. Whenever a card is exhausted, gain 4 block. Feel No Pain or Dark Embrace. Whenever a card is exhausted, draw 1 card. So here, Corruption is making your skills a lot better. They're not only costing 0, but they're also now gaining you an extra 4 or 6 block from Feel No Pain, or they're drawing you another card from Dark Embrace, and this becomes silly very rapidly. And a deck like that is also extremely, extremely strong. It requires a little bit more sensible curating, but one of the coolest runs that I've won was a run against Time Eater, where I had never gotten any strength scaling at all in the entire run. I didn't have any sort of good attack. I didn't have a barricade to stack block up. The deck ostensibly had no win condition, and the way that I lost was I had Corruption and Feel No Pain, and I had one copy of Entrench, and I made like 180 block in one turn and then played Body Slam plus 3 times. I believe I had one of them in my deck, and then I dual wielded it to create a second, and then I played both of them, and there were no cards left in my deck other than a Battle Trance, so I played Battle Trance, it drew both Body Slams again, and I played the third one to kill. You can do some absurd things when all of your skills cost 0, and they make you extra block as well. And that's what I was able to do against the Time Eater. The Time Eater, you're only allowed to play 12 cards in a turn, so, you know, the amount that you can actually combo off is limited, but I was able to fairly easily use Corruption and Feel No Pain to create hundreds of block, and I was weakened while I killed him from 400-something health. It was a fairly strong turn. So Corruption, Feel No Pain, Dark Embrace, that stuff's really strong. The next step down the ladder is playing Corruption just as a way to make your skills cost 0. You don't have any great interaction or anything, but having your skills cost 0 is quite strong. Something like Shrug It Off, gain 8 block and draw a card, that gets a lot better if it costs 0. On your turns where you play Shrug It Off, you're often drawing more cards than you can play, because you've spent 1 energy, which has drawn you another card. So if you like start with 4 energy and you have 5 cards in hand, now you have 3 energy and you still have 5 cards in hand, and probably 1 or 2 of those cards is not going to be able to be played, but with Corruption in your deck, Shrug It Off becomes better. The card draw becomes a lot more relevant because you can actually afford the energy to play all of the cards that you're playing. So Shrug It Off is incredible with Corruption in your deck. There are also skills which exhaust anyway, and they just get way better with Corruption, like Impervious. Gain 30 block exhaust. If you have Corruption in play, this costs 0 energy. Saves you a full 2 energy. If you have Shockwave, if you play Shockwave with Corruption in play, it costs you 0 energy instead of 2 energy. So Corruption in a deck which doesn't even have Feel No Pain can serve as a source of energy. Corruption has been a central card for several of my Ironclad runs, which have failed to get an energy relic on the Act 1 boss, but gone on to win an Ascension 15, simply because Corruption stops that energy from being a choke point. It stops it from being the thing that the deck gets funneled through to suffocate its output, basically. Opens up that funnel, and the deck can actually function and kill things all of a sudden. If you have a deck like that, that's a situation where you sometimes have to be wily and thoughtful about when you're going to play your Corruption. You may run out of all of your skills, because they exhaust when you play them, before the fight is over, and then you can't make block anymore, and you're dead. Now, that's never happened to me, but I also have chosen not to play Corruption the first time through the deck because I've thought, that's going to happen to me if I do right now. Another point about that one... Oh yeah, another point about that is with Snecko Eye, if you get Snecko Eye instead of an energy relic, you now draw an extra 2 cards a turn, and the cards are like random cost. Corruption overrides the Snecko Eye thing, which randomizes skill costs, and all of your skills still cost 0. So Corruption plus Snecko Eye is very strong, because you're drawing 7 cards. They cost way more than you can play in a turn. If you look at, like, it probably costs you 10 energy on average to play all of the cards you get in a Snecko Eye 7-card hand, but if you have Corruption in play, you can likely play almost all of them at once. So Corruption Snecko Eye is very strong. So yeah, that's like the next level down, and that's about where I'm at with experimenting with picking Corruption. I pick it a little bit less than half the time. I picked it, I believe, 16 times total, and won every time. This card may be so strong that you just take it on floor 2, if you're offered it. Because, like, you're gonna get skills, right? Right? Like, usually, typically you end up with skills in your deck in this game. And the problem with taking it so early is that it's a pretty bad card in the Tri-Sentries fight. It's not great against Lagavulin, and I think it's actively bad against Gremlin Knob, probably. And then it's probably not very good against the Act 1 boss, just because you don't have enough skills in your deck. The only other thing that I want to say about Corruption is a card that really rewards decks for bloating, for having lots of cards in them. The more cards you have in your deck, the stronger Corruption can be. Because when you play Corruption, you have this limit where, like, if you only have 5 defensive cards in your deck's like 12 cards with 5 defensive cards, now you only get 5 cards that cost 0 energy. But if your deck is 30 or 40 cards and has lots of defensive cards in them, then you can go for probably the rest of the fight without having to worry about running out of skills and running out of block. So the existence of Corruption, and to a lesser extent cards like Feel No Pain and stuff like that, does give you a pretty strong reason to think about bloating your deck as Ironclad. And the more that I've played the game, the more I've deviated toward not just picking cards for the moment, because I think a lot of people who think about, like, building large decks versus building small decks think about, like, if you build a large deck, you get cards which are good now, and then you keep on improving your deck, but it becomes less consistent or whatever. But that's not the point here at all. And I think this might be a bigger thing that some people are missing. I'm building a bigger deck so it can have more stuff in it, so that something like Corruption is stronger. So that something like Feel No Pain can be stronger, because I just have more stuff that I can exhaust over the course of a fight. I'm building a deck that's larger so that it can, you know, fit more copies of Metallicize in it without it getting silly. You don't want to draw 3 Metallicizes on one hand, because your hand's gonna suck. Spending a turn putting 3 Metallicizes in play isn't actually that good. You gain 9 block and don't deal any damage. Not great. But if I get to play a Metallicize every other turn for the first 6 turns, I'm okay with that. So there are some really strong reasons to think about having more cards in your deck as a resource for Ironclad. And adding more cards to your deck increases the amount of that resource that you have, because Ironclad is a class, more so than Silent, that uses the cards in an exhaustive fashion. It actually exhausts them and then they're gone. And Corruption, I think, is sort of the centerpiece of doing that. Alright, so that was my spiel about Corruption. Sorry that was long-winded and that I went on a big tangent, but I just wanted to share that with you all. I hope that you've enjoyed the chat. I've been Joe and Ribs. I'll be back tomorrow with another daily talk about Slay the Spire, and I do have links below the stream to my Twitch channel and my Discord and stuff like that if you want to come say hi to me. I'm, like, always on Discord unless I'm asleep, and I'm streaming 4 to 8 hours a day, it seems like. So decent chances that I'm live streaming as well. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.